The council chamber stretched vast enough to hold a small city. Delegates from 47 different worlds sat in their designated sections, each area modified to suit the unique biology of its occupants. The Velkari perched on heated stone platforms, their chitinous bodies gleaming under the amber lights they preferred. The Thessians occupied fluid-filled transparent spheres, their tentacled forms drifting in artificial ocean water. The Krontok stood motionless in their gravity-reduced zones, their massive frames requiring special support. Today, none of them were comfortable. High Chancellor Vornal, a Kentari whose silver skin reflected the chamber's lights like liquid metal, stood at the central podium. His three eyes swept across the assembled delegates with barely concealed desperation. Behind him, a holographic display showed the horror that had brought them all here. A sector map of the galaxy, with 17 civilizations marked in red. Dead civilizations. Consumed civilizations. The Kruthax swarm has entered the outer rim, Vornal said, his translator rendering his words in every language present. Our projections indicate they will reach coalition space within 6 standard months. A Velkari delegate, Commander Zhiktar, clicked his mandibles together in their equivalent of a bitter laugh. Projections. We had projections for the Halloran Republic too. They said they had 8 months. The swarm consumed them in 3 weeks. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The holographic display shifted, showing battle footage from the Halloran front. Elegant ships, masterworks of engineering, fought desperately against the endless tide of bioships. The Kruthax vessels looked less like spacecraft and more like deep-sea nightmares, all tentacles and bony protrusions and pulsing organs visible through translucent membranes. We have assembled the largest fleet in coalition history, Vornal continued. Every member species has contributed their finest vessels. 300,000 ships stand ready to defend the Vardis line. It won't be enough, rumbled Ambassador Kreth of the Krontok. His voice was so deep it rattled the bones of oxygen-breathing species. The swarm numbered 10 million ships at the Halloran front. They grow with each species they consume. Every ship we lose, they gain biological matter to create 2 more. The chamber fell silent. Every delegate knew Kreth spoke the truth. The Kruthax swarm had never been defeated. Not once. Not ever. 17 civilizations had tried. 17 civilizations had failed. Which brings us to our newest member, Vornal said, gesturing to a section of the chamber that had been hastily modified. The human delegation has requested to address the council. All eyes turned to the human section. It was small, simple, just enough room for 3 individuals and basic life support. The humans didn't require specialized environments. They breathed standard oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, handled normal gravity, tolerated typical temperatures. In a galaxy of exotic and specialized species, humans were almost offensively ordinary. Ambassador David Chen stood up. He was a small man, even by human standards, wearing a simple dark suit that looked primitive compared to the elaborate garments and natural displays of other delegates. He walked to the podium with steady steps, seemingly unaware of or unconcerned by the thousands of eyes watching him. "Thank you, High Chancellor," Chen said. His voice was calm, measured. "Earth has heard the Coalition's call for aid. We understand the grave threat the Kruthax swarm represents. We have studied the battle data from all 17 previous invasions. We have analyzed the tactical reports, the weapon efficiency data, the adaptive patterns of the swarm." Zhiktar clicked impatiently. "Fascinating. How many ships can your primitive world contribute to the defense? 12? 24? Every vessel counts, I suppose." Chen smiled slightly. "We are contributing our fleet, Commander. Our entire fleet." Vornal's skin rippled with color patterns that indicated confusion. "Your entire fleet? How many ships is that?" "1," Chen said simply. For a moment, the chamber was utterly silent. Then, slowly, the laughter began. It started with Zhiktar's mandible clicking, then spread to the Thessians' bubbling sounds of mirth. The Krontok's deep rumbling chuckles made the floor vibrate. Within seconds, the entire chamber echoed with the sounds of 47 species expressing their amusement in 47 different ways. Chen stood at the podium, waiting patiently for the laughter to subside. "One ship?" Jiktar finally managed to say between clicks. "Your entire species sends one ship to face a threat that has consumed 17 civilizations? Is this a joke? Some human humor we don't understand?" "No joke," Chen replied evenly. "The UNS Indomitable is humanity's contribution to the defense of the Vardis line." A Thessian delegate, Ambassador Kelsha, pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that her translator converted to speech. "Perhaps the humans don't understand the scale of what we face. The swarm numbers in the millions. You send one ship. One. Single. Ship. Ship. We understand the scale perfectly," Chen said. "We've committed our resources accordingly." More laughter. A delegate from the bird-like shrell species chirped rapidly, which translated as, "Did they send a ship? Or a symbol? Perhaps it's very shiny, and will distract the swarm." Even Vornal seemed to struggle with how to respond diplomatically. "Ambassador Chen, we appreciate Earth's enthusiasm, but surely you understand that one ship, no matter how advanced, cannot possibly make a difference against millions of Krithak's biovessels." "We believe it can," Chen said calmly. Jiktar stood up from his heated platform. "This is absurd. The humans have been part of the coalition for barely 2 of their years. They have no understanding of real warfare, real threats. Their single ship will be destroyed in the first moments of engagement, and we will have wasted time and resources accommodating their delusions. Then assign us to a position where we can't cause harm," Chen suggested. "Put the Indomitable on the flank, at the edge of the formation. If we're destroyed quickly, as you predict, we won't disrupt your battle plans." Vornal's skin flickered through several colors. He was clearly trying to find a polite way to handle this situation. The humans were coalition members, however new and naive. Their offer, however absurd, had to be accepted with some degree of respect. "Very well," Vornal said finally. "The UNS Indomitable will be assigned to position Gamma 7 on the outer perimeter of the Vardis line. We appreciate Earth's willingness to stand with us against this threat." The dismissive tone was clear. Position Gamma 7 was the furthest point from where strategic analysts predicted the swarm would concentrate its forces. It was a position for ships that didn't matter, for forces that were there for political reasons rather than tactical ones. Chen nodded. "The Indomitable will be in position within the week. We won't let the coalition down." Chen. As Chen walked back to the human section, the laughter began again. Delegates leaned toward each other, sharing their amusement. The humans, and their one ship. It would have been sad if it weren't so ridiculous. "Did you see his face?" Kelsha pulsed to her neighbors. "He actually believes one ship will make a difference. The arrogance of youth, I suppose." "Not arrogance," Jiktar clicked. "Ignorance. They simply don't know better. They'll learn, if any of them survive the first engagement." In the human section, Chen sat down between his 2 advisors. Commander Lisa Torres and Dr. James Okafor, both military liaisons from Earth's Unified Defense Force. "That went well," Torres muttered sarcastically. "Better than expected," Chen replied quietly. "They've placed us exactly where we need to be." Okafor raised an eyebrow. "The outer perimeter? That's the go away, and don't bother us position." "It's the perfect position," Chen said, pulling up a tactical display on his personal pad. "Look at the swarm's attack patterns from the previous 17 invasions. They always do the same thing. Hit the center hard to break through, then envelop from the sides. The coalition is preparing for that, concentrating their forces in the center and near flanks." "And?" Torres asked. "And they're wrong," Chen said softly. "The swarm adapted that pattern after the first 5 invasions. For the last 12, they've done something different. They send a massive wave at the center to draw forces in, then concentrate everything on one flank to punch through. The coalition keeps putting their strongest forces where the swarm isn't going to be. You think they'll hit Gamma 7? Okafor said, understanding dawning in his eyes. I think they'll hit somewhere near it, Chen confirmed. Which means the Indomitable will be exactly where the real battle happens, while everyone else is looking the wrong direction. Torres smiled grimly. They're going to feel pretty stupid when they realize the humans with one ship are the only ones in the right position. If we survive, Okafor pointed out. We'll survive, Chen said with quiet confidence. The Indomitable was built for this. Humanity didn't build one ship because we're poor or primitive. We built one ship because that's all we needed. Across the chamber, the delegates were already moving on to other business. The human contribution had been noted, mocked, and dismissed. In the grand strategic planning for the defense of the Vardis line, the UNS Indomitable was little more than an afterthought. High Chancellor Vornal reviewed the force deployments on his command display. 300,000 coalition ships, organized into battle groups by species and specialty. The Valkyrie, fast attack wings. The Thessian heavy cruisers. The Krontok dreadnoughts. The Shrell carrier flocks. Each species contributing what they did best, what they had specialized in, over thousands of years of military evolution. And one human ship, sitting alone at position Gamma 7, Vornal made a note to have rescue vessels standing by in that sector. The humans seemed sincere. If deluded, 8-1. It would be a shame if their entire species representation was wiped out in the first moments of battle. Perhaps, if any survived, they would learn humility. What Vornal didn't know, what none of the delegates knew, was that 3 light years away, the UNS Indomitable was already moving into position. And it was nothing like they imagined. The galaxy was about to learn something important about humanity. When humans decided to do something, they didn't do it halfway. They didn't do it like anyone else. They did it their own way, with their own logic, following their own path. The Council had mocked humanity's one ship. Soon, they would understand why that one ship was all humanity needed to bring. The laughter in the council chamber continued for hours after the humans left. It would be the last time anyone laughed at the UNS Indomitable. The UNS Indomitable moved through the darkness of space like a mountain that had learned to fly. It didn't glide gracefully like the elegant Thessian cruisers. It didn't dart and weave like the sleek Valkyrie interceptors. It simply moved forward with the unstoppable momentum of something that had no intention of ever stopping. Captain Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge, watching the view screen display the vast emptiness ahead. They were still 2 days from reaching position Gamma 7, but she wanted her crew ready. Ready for what was coming. Ready for what everyone else in the galaxy thought was impossible. Status report, she said calmly. Commander Marcus Webb, her executive officer, read from his display. All systems nominal. Weapons batteries 1 through 96 reporting full readiness. Defensive grids operating at 100%. Reactor cores 1 through 12 are stable. No issues to report. Captain. End quote. Sarah nodded. 96 weapons batteries. 12 reactor cores. Those numbers alone should have told the coalition something. But they hadn't asked. They'd just laughed. The bridge of the Indomitable was enormous by human standards. Vast by any standard. It needed to be. The ship had a crew of 50,000 people, 50,000 men and women from every nation on Earth, united in purpose, trained for a single mission. Lieutenant Chen Li, no relation to Ambassador Chen, looked up from the communications station. Captain, we're receiving another message from Coalition Command. They're asking if we need any support vessels assigned to our position. Sarah smiled slightly. Support vessels. They meant rescue ships. Tell them we're fine. The Indomitable is self-sufficient. That was putting it mildly. The Indomitable wasn't just self-sufficient. It was a self-contained war machine that would have made ancient Earth nations weep with envy. It had manufacturing facilities that could produce everything from ammunition to complete fighter craft. It had medical bays that could handle any conceivable injury. It had food production systems that could feed the crew for decades. It had backup systems for the backup systems, and then backup systems for those. Dr. Amira Hassan, the chief science officer, approached Sarah's command chair. "Captain, I've been reviewing the Kurthax battle data again. The swarm's adaptation rate is even faster than we initially calculated. They can analyze and counter new weapon systems in an average of 4.3 minutes. 4.3 minutes, Sarah repeated. How many different weapon systems can we deploy in 4 minutes? Amira consulted her tablet. At current combat cycling rates? Approximately 23 distinct weapons types before they can adapt to the first one. And we have 72 different weapon systems installed, with another 43 that can be fabricated on-site if we have time. Sarah leaned back in her chair. I think we'll be fine. What she didn't say, what she didn't need to say to her senior officers, because they all knew, was that the Indomitable represented something unprecedented in human history. When Earth had learned about the Coalition and the greater galaxy beyond, humanity had faced a choice. They could try to build a fleet like everyone else, spreading their resources across hundreds or thousands of smaller vessels. Or they could do something different. They chose different. The history of the Indomitable began 75 years ago, before Earth had even been invited to join the Coalition. A young engineer named Catherine Yoshida had proposed something radical at the United Earth Defense Conference. Instead of building many ships, build one perfect ship. Take everything humanity had learned from centuries of warfare, every innovation, every technological breakthrough, and pour it all into a single vessel. The proposal was laughed at. Then it was studied. Then, slowly, it began to make sense. Humans had a saying, "Jack of all trades, master of none." But the full saying, the one people forgot, continued. But oftentimes better than master of one. Humanity understood something the galaxy had forgotten. Specialization was efficient, but adaptation was survival. The Coalition species had all specialized over thousands of years. The Velkari made fast attack ships because their physiology suited quick reflexes and high-G maneuvers. The Thessians made heavy cruisers because their water-based biology could absorb tremendous kinetic impacts. The Krontok made dreadnoughts because they were massive beings who thought in terms of overwhelming force. Each species had found their strength and built entire military doctrines around it. It made sense. It was logical. It was efficient. It was also predictable. And predictability was death against an enemy that could adapt. Sarah walked across the bridge to the tactical station where Commander Yuki Tanaka monitored the weapon systems. Show me the deployment sequence one more time. Yuki pulled up a holographic display. It showed the Indomitable from multiple angles. And as she activated the simulation, weapons systems began to light up across the ship's hull. Railgun batteries here, plasma cannons there, missile pods along the spine, gravitational disruptors at the bow, laser arrays covering every angle. The first wave will be kinetic, Yuki explained, though Sarah had seen this presentation 100 times. Railguns and conventional missiles. Simple, direct, hard to adapt to because there's not much to adapt to. It's just metal, moving very fast. The swarm will adapt anyway, Sarah said. Yes, but it'll take them their full 4 minutes, because kinetic weapons don't have energy signatures to analyze. While they're working on that, we switch to energy weapons. Plasma, lasers, particle beams. Different frequencies, different intensities, cycling faster than they can adjust their bio-armor. The simulation showed the Indomitable firing, different weapons systems lighting up in sequence. It looked like a fireworks display if fireworks were designed to kill ships. When they start adapting to the energy weapons, we hit them with the exotic stuff. Yuki continued. Gravitational shear weapons that tear their ships apart at the molecular level. nanite clouds that deconstruct their biomatter, EMP bursts that disrupt their neural links, and if all else fails, she highlighted a section deep within the ship's core. We have the quantum resonance device. Sarah nodded slowly. The quantum resonance device was humanity's secret weapon, the thing they absolutely could not let the Coalition know about until the right moment. It was brilliant, terrifying, and completely untested in actual combat. Dr. Yoshida's final contribution before she passed away. 10 years ago, the woman who designed the Indomitable never got to see her creation in battle. But her spirit lived on in every system, every contingency, every backup plan. Crew status? Sarah asked, moving to another station. Lieutenant Commander James Okoye, the personnel officer, brought up crew statistics. Morale is high, Captain. Everyone knows what we're here to do. We've run the simulations 1,000 times. The crew believes in the ship. They should, Sarah said. 3 generations of Earth's best minds built this vessel. My grandmother worked on the initial reactor designs. My mother helped develop the armor plating. I grew up hearing stories about the Indomitable before I ever saw it. Every person on this ship has a connection to it. Every family on Earth has someone who contributed to its construction. That was another thing the Coalition didn't understand. To them, the Indomitable was just a ship. To humanity, it was a promise. A promise that Earth would stand against any threat. A promise that humanity, young and inexperienced in galactic terms, would not be victims, would not be conquered, would not go quietly into the dark. The view screen chimed, showing an incoming communication. Lieutenant Chen checked it. Captain, it's High Chancellor Vornal. He's asking to speak with you. Put him through. The High Chancellor's silver face appeared on the screen. He looked tired. The weight of defending the galaxy against an unstoppable threat was clearly wearing on him. Captain Okonkwo, Vornal said, I wanted to personally welcome you to the Vardis Line defense. Your ship is impressive in its scale. Sarah caught the hesitation. Impressive in scale, but not in capability. That's what he meant. Thank you, High Chancellor. We're honored to stand with the Coalition. I must ask. And please understand, I mean no disrespect, but is Earth truly sending only the Indomitable? No support vessels? No fighter wings? No supply ships? The Indomitable is self-sufficient, Sarah replied. We have everything we need. Vornal's skin flickered with colors that suggested doubt. Captain, I've reviewed your ship's specifications. It's large, certainly, but the Krthak swarm doesn't care about size. They've destroyed vessels 10 times larger than the Indomitable. I'm concerned that Earth may not fully understand what you're facing. We understand perfectly, Sarah said calmly. We've studied all 17 previous swarm invasions. We know their tactics, their adaptation patterns, their attack vectors. We're ready. 17 civilizations studied the swarm too, Vornal said gently. 17 civilizations were ready. 17 civilizations no longer exist. With respect, High Chancellor, those civilizations fought the swarm using conventional tactics, specialized vessels, standardized weapons, predictable strategies. We're not doing that. Vornal was quiet for a moment. What exactly are you doing, Captain? Sarah smiled. Everything else. The High Chancellor clearly didn't understand, but he was too polite to press further. Very well. The swarm is expected to arrive in 6 days. All vessels should be in position within 4 days to allow for final preparations. I hope to see the Indomitable at the victory celebration, Captain. He didn't sound like he believed there would be a victory celebration. He sounded like a man, trying to be kind to someone he expected to die soon. We'll be there, Sarah promised. The Indomitable doesn't go down easy. After the communication ended, Marcus stepped up beside Sarah. He thinks we're going to be destroyed in the first 5 minutes of battle. Everyone thinks that, Sarah said. Let them think it. Underestimation is a tactical advantage. She turned to address the bridge crew. Listen up, everyone. In 6 days, we're going to face an enemy that has never been defeated. An enemy that has consumed 17 civilizations. An enemy that learns and adapts faster than anything else in the known galaxy. And we're going to beat them. Not because we have the biggest ship or the most powerful weapons. We're going to beat them because we have something they don't. We have adaptability. We have innovation. We have the combined knowledge and determination of every human being on Earth. This ship is humanity's answer to an impossible threat. And humanity doesn't lose when everything is on the line. The bridge crew erupted in applause. Sarah let them have their moment. They deserved it. Every person on this ship had volunteered, knowing they might not come home. Knowing that they were Earth's only representative in the greatest battle the galaxy had ever seen. But Sarah knew something the Coalition didn't. Something the Swarm didn't know. Humanity had a way of winning impossible fights. History proved it. From ancient tribal wars to world wars to the struggle to unite Earth under one banner. Humanity had faced extinction-level threats before. And humanity had survived by doing the one thing they did better than anyone else. Adapting. The Indomitable continued its journey toward position Gamma 7. In 4 days, it would be in place. In 6 days, the battle would begin, and the galaxy would learn that humanity's one ship was more than enough. The Vardis line stretched across space like a wall built of light and metal. 300,000 ships from 47 different species, all arranged in careful formation, all waiting for the nightmare to arrive. The combined fleet represented the greatest military force the galaxy had ever assembled. Vessels of every size and purpose hung in the void, their running lights creating a constellation of artificial stars. At the center, the Krantok dreadnoughts formed an unbreakable wall. Each vessel was 5 kilometers long, armored in alloys that could withstand direct hits from weapons that could crack planets. Around them, the Thessian heavy cruisers floated in their fluid-filled ships, ready to absorb and redirect kinetic impacts that would destroy any other vessel. The Velkari fast attack wings darted between the larger ships, their pilots eager for battle, their ships humming with barely restrained energy. And at position Gamma 7, on the outermost edge of the formation, the UNS Indomitable sat alone. From the Coalition command ship, the human vessel looked almost comical. It was large, yes, but compared to the elegant curves and purposeful designs of the other ships, it looked like someone had taken a dozen different ship designs and welded them together without much care for aesthetics. It was boxy where other ships were sleek. It bristled with antennas and weapons mounts where other ships had smooth hulls. It looked, several unkind observers noted, like a flying junkyard. High Chancellor Vornal stood in the command center, studying the tactical displays. 6 hours until the swarm arrived. 6 hours until they learned if 300,000 ships would be enough. All vessels report ready, his tactical officer announced. Fleet coordination protocols are synchronized. Firing solutions are calculated. We're as prepared as we can be. Vornal nodded slowly. Everything that could be done had been done. The best military minds in the Coalition had planned this defense. They had studied the swarm's tactics, analyzed their weaknesses, prepared counter-strategies for every scenario. And yet, he felt a cold dread in his core. 17 civilizations had done the same. 17 civilizations had failed. "Sir, we're receiving a communication from the human ship," the communications officer said. Fornal straightened. "Put Captain Okonkwo through." Sarah's face appeared on the screen. Behind her, the bridge of the Indomitable bustled with activity. Humans moved between stations with practiced efficiency. Their faces focused, determined. "High Chancellor," Sarah said. "Just wanted to confirm we're in position and ready. All systems are green." "Thank you, Captain. How is your crew holding up?" "They're ready," Sarah said simply. "We all are. This is what we came to do." Vornal wanted to say something encouraging, something hopeful, but the words stuck in his throat. This young human captain, her small crew, their single ship, they were about to face an enemy that had destroyed billions. "Captain, if things go badly, If the line breaks, I want you to know that you have permission to retreat. There's no shame in—" "The Indomitable doesn't retreat," Sarah interrupted gently. "But I appreciate the concern, sir. We'll see you on the other side of this." The communication ended. Vornal stared at the tactical display showing the tiny icon representing the human ship. So much confidence. So much certainty. He envied it. Or pitied it. He wasn't sure which. 3 hours until estimated swarm arrival. The tactical officer announced. The waiting was the worst part. 300,000 ships, millions of crew members, all sitting in the dark, watching the sensors, waiting for the moment when everything would change. On the Indomitable, Sarah walked through the ship's corridors. She needed to see her crew. Needed them to see her. A captain's presence mattered in moments like this. The ship was massive inside as it was outside. Corridors stretched for kilometers. Entire sections were dedicated to specific functions. The medical bay could handle thousands of casualties. The manufacturing deck could build almost anything the ship might need. The hydroponic gardens could feed 50,000 people indefinitely. And the weapons. Oh, the weapons. Sarah stopped by Weapons Bay 17, where crews were running final checks on the gravitational disruptor arrays. Chief Petty Officer Maria Santos snapped to attention when Sarah entered. "At ease," Sarah said. "Perfect, Captain," Maria said with pride. "These beauties will tear the swarm ships apart at the molecular level. They won't know what hit them. Until they adapt," Sarah reminded her. "Until they adapt," Maria agreed. "Which is why we've got 71 other weapons systems ready to go. Let them try to adapt to everything at once." Sarah moved on, visiting weapons bay after weapons bay. Railguns that could accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. Plasma cannons that fired superheated matter at temperatures found in the hearts of stars. Missile pods, loaded with warheads, ranging from conventional explosives to antimatter charges. Laser arrays that could cut through armor like a knife through water. Each weapons system was manned by specialists who had trained for years. Each system was designed to counter specific threats, and each system was just one part of the greater whole. That was the key. The Indomitable wasn't specialized. It was generalized to an extreme degree. It could do everything, even if it couldn't do any one thing better than a ship designed specifically for that purpose. But the swarm could adapt to specialists. Could they adapt to a ship that kept changing tactics faster than they could analyze? Sarah made her way to the reactor room, where Chief Engineer David Kim oversaw the 12 massive fusion reactors that powered the ship. The room was enormous, with each reactor housed in its own containment chamber. Thick walls of shielding separating them in case of catastrophic failure. "Captain on deck!" someone shouted, and the engineering crew snapped to attention. "As you were," Sarah said, approaching David. "Talk to me about power distribution." David pulled up a holographic display. "All 12 reactors operating at nominal levels. We've got enough power output to supply a small city, and that's at standard operation. If we need to push it, we can overclock 6 of them and still have 6 in reserve. We can lose half our reactors and still maintain combat effectiveness. And if we lose more than half, then we've got bigger problems than power," David said honestly. "But Captain, these reactors were designed with redundancy in mind. Each one can be isolated and ejected if it becomes unstable. The swarm would have to specifically target each reactor individually to cripple us, and they'd have to get through 70 meters of armor to reach them." Sarah nodded. 70 meters of armor. The Indomitable's hull was layered like an onion, each layer designed to defeat different types of weapons. Conventional kinetic armor on the outside, energy-dispersing metamaterials underneath, self-repairing nanocomposite in the middle layers, and a final layer of exotic matter that existed in a quantum superposition state, making it incredibly difficult to damage. The Coalition had looked at the Indomitable's specifications and seen a big, slow, ungainly vessel. They hadn't understood that every seemingly inefficient choice was deliberate. The ship wasn't built to be fast or elegant. It was built to survive. to endure, to keep fighting long after other ships would have been destroyed. 1 hour until swarm arrival. The announcement echoed through the ship's corridors. Sarah returned to the bridge. Her senior officers were all at their stations, faces calm but alert. These were the people she trusted with her life. More importantly, these were the people Earth had trusted with humanity's first major contribution to galactic defense. No pressure. All stations. Final status check, Sarah commanded. One by one, her officers reported. Weapons. Green. Engineering. Green. Life support. Green. Sensors. Green. Communications. Green. Navigation. Green. The Indomitable was ready. Across the Vardis line, 300,000 other ships reported the same. 15 minutes. The tactical officer announced. Sarah brought up the sensor display on her command chair. Nothing yet. Just empty space and the distant stars. But the sensors were active, sweeping the area where the swarm was expected to emerge from hyperspace. 10 minutes. The bridge fell silent. Sarah could hear the soft hum of the ship's systems, the quiet breathing of her crew. This was the moment before. The last moment of peace before everything changed. 5 minutes. Sarah's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. Not from fear, from anticipation, from readiness. Humanity had sent one ship, one crew, one chance to prove they belonged in this fight. 2 minutes. The sensors started to ping. Something was coming. Something massive. The space in front of the Vardis line began to distort, reality bending as something forced its way through from hyperspace. 1 minute. The distortions intensified. Sarah watched as the fabric of space-time rippled and tore. Through the tears, she could see movement, shapes, things that should not exist, could not exist, but did. Contact. The Kruthax swarm erupted into normal space. It was worse than the recordings. The bioships came through in a wave of writhing flesh and bone. Millions of them. Tens of millions. Each one was unique, organic, alive in a way that made Sarah's skin crawl. They looked like deep-sea horrors, crossed with alien nightmares. All tentacles and teeth and pulsing organs, and they just kept coming. The sensors couldn't even count them all. The display simply showed multiple contacts. UN known. Number. Estimate 10 million vessels, the sensor officer said, her voice shaking slightly. No, wait. 12 million. 15 million. They're still coming through. The swarm filled the view screen from edge to edge. A living wall of bioships. Each one hungry. Each one driven by the hive mind to consume and grow. All ships, weapons-free. High Chancellor Vornal's voice came through on the Coalition command channel. Fire at will. Grace. 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 The Vardis line erupted in light. 300,000 ships opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams cut through the void. Missiles streaked across the darkness. Kinetic rounds created a wall of metal and death. The front ranks of the swarm simply ceased to exist. Thousands of bioships were destroyed in the first volley. Tens of thousands. The Coalition's opening salvo was devastating. Precise, coordinated, the swarm didn't even slow down. The bioships behind the destroyed front rank kept coming. They flowed around the debris of their fallen comrades like water around rocks. And as they came, they were already changing. The swarm was analyzing the attacks, learning, adapting. The second Coalition volley hit a swarm that had begun to harden its bio-armor against energy weapons. The third volley hit a swarm that had developed reflective surfaces to deflect lasers. The fourth volley hit a swarm that had reorganized its formation to minimize casualties. They're adapting faster than predicted, someone shouted on the command channel. The swarm reached the Coalition line and began to tear into it. Bioships attached themselves to Coalition vessels, burning through armor with acid, tearing through hulls with appendages that could rip metal like paper. Ships began to die. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Sarah watched the tactical display as the carefully organized Vardis line began to fragment. The coalition ships were fighting desperately, but the swarm was doing exactly what it had done 17 times before. Adapt, overwhelm, consume. Captain, should we engage? Marcus asked. Not yet, Sarah said calmly. We wait. Wait for what? For them to show us where they're really attacking. Because Sarah had studied the swarm's patterns. She knew what everyone else was about to learn. The frontal assault was a feint. The real attack was coming from the flank. And then it happened. A massive portion of the swarm, millions of bioships, suddenly broke off from the main body. They accelerated around the coalition fleet's right flank, exactly as they had done in 12 of the previous 17 invasions. They were heading directly for position Gamma 7. They were heading directly for the Indomitable. Here they come, Sarah said quietly. The entire bridge crew turned to look at her. All hands, battle stations, Sarah commanded, her voice calm, clear, certain. This is what we came here to do. The swarm thinks we're an easy target. Let's show them what humanity can do. All weapons systems, prepare to fire. Engineering, bring all reactors to full power. Helm, take us forward. Forward, Captain? The helmsman asked, surprise in his voice. Forward, Sarah confirmed. Toward the swarm. We're going to cross into their formation. Crossing into their formation is suicide, Marcus said. Sarah smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something no one else did. Marcus, suicide is fighting the swarm the way everyone else has fought them. We're not doing that. We're doing something they've never seen before. We're bringing the fight to them. Helm, full speed ahead. The UN's Indomitable, humanity's one ship, turned toward the approaching wall of bioships, alone. Outnumbered millions to one, and it charged. The collision course display on the Indomitable's bridge showed the impossible math. One ship accelerating toward approximately 7 million bioships. The computer helpfully calculated survival probability and displayed it in the corner of the screen. 0.003%. Sarah ignored it. Computers didn't account for human stubbornness. Distance to swarm forward elements. 200,000 kilometers in closing. The tactical officer called out. They're accelerating toward us. Estimate contact in 4 minutes. Mosted Vility. 4 minutes. Weapons status? Sarah asked. Commander Yuki Tanaka's fingers danced across her console. All 96 weapons batteries are online and ready. Rail guns loaded. Plasma cannons charged. Missile tubes hot. Energy weapons at full power. Exotic weapon systems on standby. We have firing solutions on the first 3,000 targets. Only 3,000? Sarah asked with a slight smile. The computer gave up counting after that. There are too many of them. Then we'll just have to shoot them all, Sarah said. Prepare to fire on my mark. Commence with rail guns, full spread. I want a wall of metal between us and them. Yes, Captain. Sarah watched the distance count down. 150,000 kilometers. 100,000. The swarm was getting closer. Their bioships, now visible on the view screen, they looked even worse up close. Pulsing organs. Writhing tentacles. Mouths that opened and closed hungrily. These things weren't ships. They were monsters. Perfect. Humanity had plenty of experience killing monsters. 50,000 kilometers, the tactical officer announced. All railguns fire, Sarah commanded. The Indomitable shuddered as 50 railgun batteries fired simultaneously. Magnetic accelerators hurled tungsten slugs at velocities that turned simple metal into kinetic energy weapons of terrifying power. Each slug massed only a few kilograms. But at those speeds, each impact released energy equivalent to a tactical nuclear weapon. The first volley crossed the distance in seconds. 50 bioships simply exploded, torn apart by impacts they never saw coming. The second volley fired before the first had even hit. Then the third. Then the fourth. The railguns fired in a continuous stream, cycling so fast they created a literal wall of metal between the Indomitable and the swarm. Bioships ran into the barrier and died. Hundreds of them. Thousands. They're adapting, the sensor officer shouted. Bio-armor is hardening. They're developing ablative outer layers to absorb kinetic impacts. Time to adaptation? Sarah asked calmly. 3 minutes, 40 seconds. Faster than predicted. Switch to plasma cannons, Sarah ordered. All forward batteries. Give them something different to think about. The plasma cannons fired, launching bolts of superheated matter at the swarm. Where the railgun slugs had punched through armor, the plasma burned. Bioships caught in the plasma streams, literally cooked. Their organic components, unable to withstand temperatures that turned metal to vapor. More bioships died. More gaps appeared in the swarm formation, but the gaps closed immediately. For every bioship destroyed, 10 more moved forward to take its place. The swarm was endless, relentless, unstoppable. Contact in 30 seconds. The tactical officer called. The swarm reached the Indomitable, and the Indomitable plowed right through them. Bioships slammed into the Indomitable's hull. They attached themselves with tentacles and appendages, trying to burn through the armor with acid, trying to tear through the hull with bone-hard claws. A dozen found purchase. Then 100, then 1,000. Inside the ship, damage reports started flooding in. Hull breaches on decks 17 through 23. Sealing emergency bulkheads. Bioship attachments on sections 40 through 60. They're burning through the outer armor. Acid damage on the port side. The outer hull is compromising. Sarah remained calm. Deploy anti-personnel defense systems. Activate hull current. Throughout the ship's exterior, automated defense systems came online. Laser turrets too small to damage ships but perfect for cutting apart the biological nightmares attached to the hull began firing. Simultaneously, the entire outer hull was energized with enough electrical current to power a city. Bioships screamed. If such things could scream. The ones attached to the hull were electrocuted, burned, cut apart by laser fire. They fell away, dead or dying, but more came. Always more. They're adapting to the electrical current, engineering reported. Developing insulating layers. How long until full adaptation? 2 minutes. Switch the current to alternating frequency, Sarah ordered. Cycle it randomly. Make them adapt to a moving target. And activate the nanoclouds. Compartments along the hull opened, releasing clouds of microscopic machines. The nanites swarmed over the bioships still attached to the hull, breaking them down at the molecular level. It was slow, but thorough. The bioships began to simply dissolve. Their organic matter deconstructed by billions of tiny machines, working in concert. Nanocloud effectiveness at 80% and holding, the science officer reported. The Indomitable continued to push deeper into the swarm formation. Sarah had the helm weaving and turning, never staying on one vector long enough for the bioships to predict their movement. The ship's mass made it slow to turn. But in the chaos of millions of swarm vessels, slow was relative. Deploy missiles, all pods, Sarah commanded. Smart munitions, independent targeting. Let them hunt. Thousands of missile hatches opened across the Indomitable's hull. Missiles streaked out in every direction, each one equipped with its own targeting computer, each one hunting for bioships. The missiles wove through the swarm like dancers, finding targets, destroying them, moving on to the next. One missile, one kill. Thousands of missiles, thousands of kills. But the swarm had millions of ships. Captain, we're taking heavy damage, Marcus reported. The outer armor is holding, but we've lost 40% of the outermost layer. They're getting through to the secondary hull, in places. Route damage control teams. Seal the breaches. Keep us moving forward. Forward? Marcus asked. Captain, we're in the middle of their formation. If we go further in, we'll be completely surrounded. That's exactly where we need to be, Sarah said. She pulled up a tactical map that showed the Indomitable's position relative to the swarm. They were deep in the formation now, surrounded by millions of bioships. Behind them, the path they had carved through the swarm was already closing as more bioships moved to fill the space. They're concentrating their forces around us, the tactical officer observed. Every bioship within range is converging on our position. Good, Sarah said. That means they're not attacking the coalition fleet. Navigation. What's our position relative to the center of the swarm mass? The navigation officer checked. We're approximately 40,000 kilometers from what sensors identify as the highest concentration of swarm vessels. Some kind of central cluster. Take us there, Sarah ordered. Full speed. The Indomitable accelerated, smashing through bioships like a battering ram through a wooden door. The ship shuddered with each impact. Damage reports continued to stream in, but the ship held. The layers of armor, the redundant systems, the over-engineered structure that the coalition had mocked, it all held. Switching to energy weapons, full spectrum, Yuki announced. Lasers, particle beams, ion cannons, all firing. The space around the Indomitable lit up like a star. Energy weapons fired in all directions simultaneously, cutting down bioships by the hundreds. The swarm tried to adapt, developing reflective surfaces, ablative coatings, dispersal patterns. They're adapting to energy weapons, the sensor officer reported. Effectiveness dropping. 40%. 30%. Switch to gravitational disruptors, Sarah commanded. The exotic weapons came online. These didn't fire projectiles or energy. They manipulated gravity itself, creating intense gravitational shears that tore bioships apart at the molecular level. The bioships had no defense against it. How do you armor against gravity? Hundreds more bioships died, ripped apart by forces they couldn't see or understand. They're trying to adapt to the gravitational weapons, the science officer reported. But they can't. It's not an energy signature they can adjust to. It's fundamental physics. They'll find a way eventually, Sarah said. They always do. Keep firing until they figure it out. The Indomitable pushed deeper. 20,000 kilometers from the swarm center. 10,000. 5,000. Captain, I'm detecting something unusual, the sensor officer said. At the center of the swarm formation, there's a cluster of bioships that are different from the others. Larger, more complex. They're not attacking. They're just sitting there. Command ships, Sarah said. The hive mind nodes. That's what we're looking for. How many? Approximately 300 vessels, each one about twice the size of standard swarm ships. They're surrounded by the highest concentration of defenders. Of course they are, Sarah muttered. Navigation. Plot a course directly to those command ships. Captain, we're already taking critical damage, Marcus protested. If we push into the densest part of the swarm formation, we won't survive. We don't need to survive for long, Sarah said quietly. We just need to get close enough. She brought up a display that showed the Indomitable's most secret weapon, the quantum resonance device. Housed deep in the ship's core, Dr. Yoshida's final gift to humanity, the weapon that could end the swarm. If it worked, if they could get close enough, if they survived long enough to deploy it, all hands. This is the captain, Sarah announced on the ship-wide channel. We're about to push through the heaviest resistance the swarm can throw at us. It's going to get rough. Damage control teams, be ready. Engineering, I need everything you've got. Weapons, fire everything we have. We're going to the center of the swarm, and nothing is going to stop us. The Indomitable accelerated to full speed. The ship crashed through the densest concentration of bioships the galaxy had ever seen. The hull groaned under the impacts. Armor plating tore away. Systems began to fail. But the ship kept moving forward. Hull breaches on 50 decks. We're venting atmosphere. Reactor 3 is offline. Reactor 7 showing instability. We've lost weapons, batteries, 30 through 45. Portside armor is gone. They're hitting the inner hull. The damage reports came faster than Sarah could process them. But the ship held. The over-engineered, redundant, excessive systems that made the Indomitable so ungainly, they were keeping the ship alive. 1,000 kilometers to the command cluster, navigation announced. Sarah stood from her chair. This was it. This was the moment everything came down to. Dr. Hassan, activate the quantum resonance device. Set it for maximum range, all frequencies. Amira's hands shook as she entered the activation codes. Device is online, charging. It'll take 60 seconds to reach full power. 60 seconds. An eternity in combat. All weapons, continuous fire. Sarah commanded. Don't let them through. Engineering, divert all power to weapons and the quantum device. The Indomitable became a sphere of light and death. Every weapon fired simultaneously. Railguns, plasma cannons, missiles, energy beams, gravitational disruptors. Everything humanity had created to kill. The bioships around them died in their thousands, but more kept coming. 30 seconds. Amira called out. The ship shook violently. Somewhere deep in the hull, something exploded. Reactor 7 is critical. Ejecting core. Reacting core. Reactor 7. The reactor was blown free of the ship, tumbling away into space before exploding in a miniature star. 15 seconds. Bioships were attached to every surface of the Indomitable now. The ship was covered in writhing, burning, dying alien flesh. The hull was failing. Systems were going offline. 5 seconds. Sarah gripped her command chair. Dr. Hassan. The moment it's ready. Fire. Device at full power. Firing now. Nothing visible happened. No beam of light. No explosion. No dramatic effect. But across the swarm, every bioship suddenly went still. The quantum resonance device had done exactly what it was designed to do. It had found the frequency of the hive mind's neural link and severed it. 10 million bioships, all controlled by a single collective intelligence, suddenly became 10 million individual organisms with no direction, no coordination, no purpose. The organized wave of destruction became a confused mass of drifting creatures. It worked, Amira whispered. It actually worked. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Signal the coalition fleet. Tell them the swarm is disorganized. Tell them to attack now. While they're vulnerable. She looked at the view screen. At the millions of confused bioships floating aimlessly in space, humanity's one ship had just changed the course of the battle. Now they just had to survive long enough to see the victory. The silence on the Indomitable's bridge was absolute. Every eye was fixed on the view screen, watching the impossible become real. The Krothax swarm, the unstoppable force that had consumed 17 civilizations, was drifting aimlessly through space, like leaves scattered by the wind. Captain, we're receiving multiple hails from Coalition Command, Lieutenant Chen reported, her voice shaking slightly. They're asking what happened. They're asking what we did. Sarah's legs felt weak. She sat down heavily in her command chair. The adrenaline that had kept her focused during the assault, now draining away. They had done it. Against all odds, against all logic, they had actually done it. Tell them the swarm's hive mind has been disrupted, Sarah said, forcing her voice to remain steady. Tell them the bioships are disorganized and vulnerable, and tell them to attack now, before the swarm can recover. She didn't know if the swarm could recover. The quantum resonance device was theoretical, built on principles that were barely understood. Dr. Yoshida had believed it would work, but she had never been certain. No one had been certain, but it had worked. Coalition fleet is moving forward, the tactical officer announced. All ships are engaging the swarm. The view screen showed the beautiful sight of 300,000 coalition ships surging forward. The Velkari fast attack wings darted through the confused swarm, their weapons cutting down bioships that made no attempt to evade or defend. The Thessian heavy cruisers fired their kinetic weapons into dense clusters of bioships, destroying dozens with each shot. The Krantok dreadnoughts advanced like mobile fortresses, their massive guns reducing bioships to organic debris. Without coordination, without the hive mind guiding them, the swarm wasn't a threat. They were just confused animals in space, waiting to be destroyed. "Captain, damage report," Marcus said grimly. Sarah nodded. Marcus pulled up the statistics, and they were grim. "We've lost 68% of our outer hull. 42 weapons batteries are destroyed or offline. Reactors 3, 7, and 11 are gone. We have hull breaches on 83 decks. Life support is failing in multiple sections. And we've taken casualties." Sarah closed her eyes. "How many?" 3,147 dead, Marcus said softly. "Another 800 wounded, many critically. 3,000 people. 3,000 families on Earth who would receive the notification that their loved ones had died in space, fighting an enemy most humans had never heard of." Sarah felt the weight of every single loss. "They saved the galaxy," she said quietly. "Make sure their families know that. Make sure everyone knows that." "Yes, Captain." "What's our combat readiness?" Sarah asked. Marcus checked his displays. "We're at about 30% functionality. We could fight if we had to, but we'd be at a severe disadvantage. We should withdraw for repairs." "Not yet," Sarah said. "Not until the swarm is completely destroyed." She stood up, ignoring the pain in her ribs where she'd been thrown against the command chair during the assault. "All remaining weapons. Batteries. Continue engaging swarm targets. Prioritize the command cluster ships. I want to make sure the hive mind can't reconnect." The Indomitable, battered and bleeding but unbroken, continued to fight. Its remaining weapons fired at the command cluster, bioships, the large vessels that had coordinated the swarm. Without the hive mind, they were just bigger targets. One by one, they died. "Captain, we're receiving a priority communication from High Chancellor Vornal," Lieutenant Chen announced. On screen, Vornal's face appeared, and Sarah almost didn't recognize him. The silver-skinned Kentari looked stunned, his 3 eyes wide with disbelief. Behind him, the Coalition Command Center was in chaos, with officers running between stations, displays showing the systematic destruction of the swarm. "Captain Okonkwo," Vornal said slowly. What did you do?" "We deployed a quantum resonance weapon that disrupted the swarm's hive mind neural network," Sarah explained. "We analyzed the patterns from the 17 previous invasions and identified the weakness. The swarm's strength came from perfect coordination. Without it, they're just individual organisms." "You disrupted the hive mind," Vornal repeated, as if saying the words would help him understand. 17 civilizations failed to stop the swarm. You ended the threat with one ship. One ship. One ship with the right weapon, Sarah said. "We spent 75 years building the Indomitable. 3 generations of humans contributed to its design. We studied everything the galaxy knew about the swarm. We prepared for this specific mission." "The Coalition thought you were sending a token force," Vornal said. "A symbolic gesture." "We laughed at your single ship. I know," Sarah said without bitterness. "But we didn't need you to believe in us. We believed in ourselves." Vornal was silent for a long moment. "Captain, the Coalition owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. Your ship, your crew, your sacrifice. You saved us all. We did what we came to do," Sarah said simply. "Now, if you'll excuse me. High Chancellor, I have a damaged ship to keep running, and a battle to finish." The communication ended. Sarah turned back to her bridge crew. They looked exhausted, battered, shocked. But they also looked proud. "Status of the swarm?" Sarah asked. "Coalition forces have destroyed approximately 60% of the bioships. the tactical officer reported. The remaining 40% are scattered and fleeing. Some are attempting to jump to hyperspace, but coalition ships are intercepting them. High Command estimates complete destruction of the swarm within 6 hours. 6 hours. The battle that was supposed to be impossible, that was supposed to end in the extinction of the coalition, would be over in 6 hours. Because humanity had built one perfect ship, the hours passed slowly. The Indomitable's crew worked frantically to repair critical systems, to seal hull breaches, to save the wounded. Damage control teams moved through the ship in environmental suits, welding plates over holes in the hull, rerouting power around destroyed systems, doing everything possible to keep the ship functional. In the medical bay, doctors and nurses from a dozen different human nations worked side by side, treating injuries that ranged from minor cuts to catastrophic wounds. The medical staff had prepared for mass casualties, and their preparation paid off. Most of the wounded would survive, but 3,000 wouldn't. 3,000 crew members who had believed in the mission, who had trusted in the ship, who had given everything they had. Sarah visited the medical bay personally, moving between beds, talking to the wounded. Many were barely conscious, drugged to manage pain, but they smiled when they saw her. They had done it. They had faced the galaxy's greatest nightmare, and won. In engineering, David Kim and his teams were performing miracles. With 3 reactors destroyed, they were running the ship on the remaining 9, carefully balancing power distribution to keep critical systems online. The ship would need months of repairs in a proper shipyard, but for now, it could still fight if needed. On the weapons decks, crews were assessing the damage to their systems. Nearly half the weapons batteries were gone, destroyed by swarm bioships, or damaged by the stress of continuous firing, but the other half were still functional, still ready. The Indomitable had been built with redundancy in mind. Lose half your weapons, you still had half left. Lose half your reactors, you still had power. Lose sections of your hull, the rest held. The ship was designed to survive, and it had. Captain, Coalition Command reports the swarm has been completely eliminated, Lieutenant Chen announced. All bioships have been destroyed or driven from Coalition space. High Chancellor Vornal is declaring victory. The bridge crew erupted in cheers. Sarah let them have their moment. They had earned it. How long until we can return to Coalition space? Sarah asked. At our current engine capacity, about 3 days, the navigation officer reported. We're not going to be setting any speed records. That's fine, Sarah said. We're not in a hurry. Navigation. Plot a course for the nearest Coalition station. Let's go home. 3 days later, the UNS Indomitable limped into Coalition Station Alpha. The massive space station orbited a neutral planet that served as the Coalition's central hub. It was designed to accommodate ships from all member species, with docking ports sized for everything from tiny scout ships to massive cargo haulers. No one had designed a port for the Indomitable. The ship was too large, too damaged to dock normally. Instead, it took up position in a parking orbit near the station, surrounded by Coalition engineering vessels that began the long process of assessing the damage and planning repairs. But before any repairs could begin, there was something else that had to happen. High Chancellor Vornal requested permission to come aboard. Sarah, still wearing her battle-stained uniform because all her others had been destroyed when her quarters were breached, met him in the Indomitable's main hangar bay. The hangar was one of the few sections of the ship that had survived relatively intact. It was vast enough to hold smaller ships, designed to support fighter operations if needed. Now it was filled with Coalition dignitaries, news crews from a dozen species, and as many of the Indomitable's crew as could be spared from repairs. Vornal arrived with an entourage of Coalition officials. He stepped off his shuttle and stopped, staring at Sarah and the assembled human crew. His silver skin rippled with colors that Sarah's cultural briefings told her meant deep respect. Captain Okonkwo, Vornal said formally, on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, I come to offer our deepest gratitude and our profound apologies. Apologies? Sarah asked. We mocked you, Vornal said simply. We laughed at your single ship. We dismissed humanity as naive children playing at war. We were wrong. Catastrophically wrong. He gestured to the gathered officials behind him. The Coalition Council has voted unanimously. We want to commission human engineers to design the next generation of Coalition vessels. We want to learn from you. The Ruggerment, we want to learn from you. We want to understand how you think, how you prepare, how you fight. Sarah considered this. High Chancellor, I'll need to consult with Earth's government. But I can tell you this. We didn't build the Indomitable to impress anyone. We built it to solve a problem. The problem was the swarm. The solution was a ship that could adapt faster than they could. Adaptability, Vornal said thoughtfully. The Coalition species have spent thousands of years specializing. We became masters of specific types of warfare. But you humans, you're different. You're generalists. You do everything adequately, instead of one thing. Perfectly. Jack of all trades, master of none, Sarah quoted. But the full saying is, Jack of all trades, master of none. But oftentimes better than master of one. We understand now, Vornal said. The swarm could adapt to specialists, but they couldn't adapt to a ship that kept changing tactics faster than they could analyze. Exactly, Sarah confirmed. Every species in the Coalition built fleets of specialized ships. Humanity built one ship that could do everything. When one weapon system failed, we switched to another. When one tactic didn't work, we tried something else. We stayed unpredictable. Vornal's skin rippled again. There's another matter. The Coalition wishes to honor your fallen crew members. 3,000 humans gave their lives to save trillions of Coalition citizens. We want to build a memorial, something permanent, so that their sacrifice is never forgotten. Sarah felt tears threatening. She pushed them back. They would appreciate that. They died believing they were doing something important. Knowing the galaxy remembers them would matter. It will be the largest memorial in Coalition space, Vornal promised. And Captain, there's one more thing. The Council wants to know. Can humanity build more ships like the Indomitable? Sarah smiled. High Chancellor, we can build whatever we need to build. We brought one ship because we only needed one ship. But if you'd like, we can show you how we built it. We can share our engineering philosophy, our design principles, our approach to problem solving. We would be honored to learn, Vornal said. Several weeks later, Sarah stood in the Coalition Council chambers, the same chamber where Ambassador Chen had been mocked for offering one ship, the same chamber where the galaxy had laughed at humanity's contribution. No one was laughing now. The chamber was packed with delegates, all standing, all silent as Sarah delivered her report. She spoke for 2 hours, explaining the Indomitable's design philosophy, the quantum resonance weapon, the tactical decisions that had led them to the center of the swarm formation. When she finished, the chamber erupted in applause. Not polite applause, not diplomatic applause. Real, genuine appreciation from beings who understood they had witnessed something extraordinary. Ambassador Chen approached Sarah after the session ended. You did well, Captain. Earth is proud of you and your crew. We just did our job, Sarah said. You did more than that, Chen replied. You changed how the galaxy thinks about humanity. Before the battle, we were the new species, the inexperienced children. Now, we're the species that stopped the unstoppable. That reputation will matter in the years to come. Sarah nodded slowly. Ambassador, there's something I've been thinking about. The Indomitable worked because we built it specifically to counter the swarm. We spent 75 years preparing for one specific threat. What happens when we face a different threat? What if there's something out there we haven't prepared for? Chen smiled. Then humanity will do what it always does, Captain. We'll adapt. We'll innovate. We'll find a way. That's what we do. That's who we are. He paused, then added, "The council asked me about building more ships. I told them Earth would consider it. But I also told them something else. I told them that humanity doesn't copy what works. We improve it. If we build another ship, it won't be another Indomitable. It'll be something different. Something better. Something designed for whatever challenge we face next." "Good," Sarah said. "Because the Indomitable was a masterpiece, but it was designed by my grandmother's generation. My generation will build something even better." 6 months later, the UNS Indomitable returned to Earth orbit. The ship had been repaired, upgraded, modified. It bore the scars of battle proudly, with memorial plaques in every section listing the names of the fallen. Sarah stood on the observation deck, looking down at the blue-green planet below. Humanity's home. The world that had built one ship and changed the galaxy. Behind her, the crew gathered. 50,000 people had left Earth. 46,853 were coming home. Each one of them had a story. Each one of them had earned the right to say they had faced the galaxy's nightmare and won. "Captain," Marcus said quietly, "Earth is asking when you want to begin debriefing." "Tell them tomorrow," Sarah said. "Today, I want the crew to go home. I want them to see their families, to rest, to remember what we were fighting for." She turned to face her officers. These people who had trusted her, followed her into the center of the swarm, and survived. "You know they're going to want us to do this again," she said. "There will be other threats, other battles. They'll want the Indomitable ready." "We'll be ready," Marcus said simply. "That's what we do." Sarah smiled. "Yes, that's what we do." Far above Earth, the UNS Indomitable hung in space. One ship. Humanity's answer to an impossible threat. Battered but unbroken. Scarred but victorious. The galaxy had mocked humanity's one ship. The galaxy would never make that mistake again.